All right, welcome back everybody. We are now on lesson 1.6, and this lesson covers writing equations from expressions, okay? So this recall, we've already talked about writing algebraic expressions. So we already learned how to do that, so let's go ahead and just double check that we know that. Match the phrase with the correct algebraic expression. The expressions will be used more than once, okay? So we have y minus 2, 2y, y plus 2, y over 2, and 2 minus y. So you see we have 12 options here for only 5 expressions. So that just shows you how differently they can all be written. So if we have 2 more than y, okay, well more means we're going to add, but you want y first. When you have than, that is your switch word, okay? So y is going to come first. So we're going to have y plus 2, so our answer is C. Half of y. Okay, well, y divided by 2, that'll give us half. 2 less than y, so once again, we have minus, but that than is a switch word. So instead of 2 minus y, we're going to have y minus 2. Twice y, that's 2 times y, B. Okay, then we have the quotient of y and 2. Quotient means we are dividing, so it's got to be y divided by 2. Y increased by 2, that's y plus 2. 2 less y, that's 2 minus y. So that's going to be E. Notice it's not going to be A, it's E. The product of 2 and y, product means we are going to multiply. So we're going to have B, 2y. Y decreased by 2, that's y minus 2. Y doubled, that's 2 times y, it's going to be B. 2 minus y, that one's pretty easy, E, 2 minus y. And then lastly, we have the sum of 2 and y. So we're adding 2 plus y, so we're going to have C. All right, so now let's talk about it when we're writing actual equations. We're going to have that equal to in this one. So we have triple the original number x. Triple, okay, that's 3. We have our x, and we have 700. So that's our equation. 3x equals 700. The product of a number x and 15 is 15. So we have the product. That means we're going to multiply. Of, that's our group right there, a number x and 5, and that equals 15. So we're going to have x and 5, that's being multiplied, so we can write that 5x equals 15. 4 times the difference of a number x and 2, the same as is 20. Okay, so we have 4 times, so that's 4 multiplied, and then we've got the difference. That means we're going to subtract of a number x and 2. That's our group, the same as is 20. So that means we equal 20. Right? So we've got 4 being multiplied by x and 2, which was the difference. So x minus 2 equals 20. All right, D, we've got 17 more than half a number x is 35. So we have 17. More means we're adding. Than means we have that switch. I'm just going to do a little arrow to show that. Half a number x is 35. So that's going to be divided by 2. We've got our x, and it equals 35. All right, so we can go ahead and write that out. We'll have our variable first. So half a number x, that's going to be x divided by 2. Plus 17, right? That than was a switch word. So it goes second, and it equals 35. Then we've got E, 4 times, so that's 4 multiplied by the sum of a number x and 10 is identical to 48. All right, so we have 4 times the sum of x and 10, so sum means we're adding, and it equals 48. All right, now let's look at writing algebraic equations from situations. All right, so we're still doing the same concept as what we just did, except our wording is going to be a little different, right? We're more of word problems at this point. The number of parts in inventory, P, minus 54 parts sold is 320. So our equation will be P minus 54 equals 320. And then it asks us, what does P represent in the equation? Well, it says right here, the number of parts in inventory, P. Okay, then we have 100 seeds divided by 5 rows equals S. That's a 5, that's an S. So 100 divided by 5, we'll write that as a fraction, and it's going to equal S. 100 over 5 equals S. I know you can try to tell this apart. Okay, what does S represent in the equation? Okay, it'll tell you S is the number of seeds, right? And then we're dividing by rows, so we've got the number of seeds per row. His base pay of $200 increased, so add, by his commission, which is C, and that all together equals 500. So we know that 200 plus C should give us $500. So what does C represent in the equation? His commission, right? So the amount of his commission. We started with S number of students. When 5 moved away, we had 12 students left. So we started with S. 5 moved away, so we're going to lose 5, right? Subtract 5. We had 12 students left, so that equals 12. So we should have S minus 5 equals 12. What does S represent in the equation? Started with S number of students, so the number of students we started with. All right. So I want you guys to get comfortable using word problems. We're going to work on writing equations from word problems next, okay? When 6 is added to 4 times a number, the result is 50. What is the number? Okay, so when 6 is added to 4 times a number, so we'll say 4x, right? We don't know this number, so we have to give it a variable. Doesn't say what the variable's name is, but we know that it's going to equal 50. So we can say, we could have used any variable that you wanted, any letter in the alphabet. So let's define a variable for the unknown value, okay? So I wrote x up here, but let's say times a number, right? So we'll say n is our variable. And we'll just put 4 multiplied, so that doesn't confuse you. So we're going to let n represent our unknown number. What is the number? You could use any variable, but sometimes it helps to keep things a little more organized. If you pull, number, we're going to use n. So write and solve the equation. So we know that we're going to have 6 plus 4 times a number, n, equals 50. And then we're going to solve for n. So remember, we do and undo what is being done. We figure out what's being done and we undo it. We only want n on the left side of our equation. So the first thing we need to do, remember we do SADMEG. So the first thing that we need to do is get rid of the 6. We're going to subtract 6 from both sides. And we're left with 4n equals 44. And then this 4n, anytime you see the number the coefficient right next to the variable, remember that it's being multiplied. So we're going to then divide to undo it. So we're going to divide each side by 4. And we get n equals 11. All right, then it says to answer the question with the correct units. This is what you've got to get used to. You're not always just going to put n equals 11. If you're answering a word problem, you have to answer it in the correct units, okay? So the number is 11. All right, now we are on 1B. So we've got on an algebra test, the highest grade was 42 points higher than the lowest grade. The sum of the two grades was 138. What was the lowest grade? Okay, so we know that the highest grade was 42 points higher, so that means plus our lowest grade. Notice they did not give a variable to our lowest grade. We need to make one. So if we're calling it the lowest grade, we'll call it G. Okay, and then it says the sum of the two grades. So that means high plus low equals 138. All right, so we know that our highest grade is going to be 42 plus our lowest grade, which we said is G. But that's also, the 138 also includes the lowest grade, so we're going to have G on there twice. Right, so when it says write and solve our equation, we can put that in the proper form. Right, we're going to have 2G, we can combine our like terms, plus 42, and it equals 138. And now we can solve for G. So we need to start by subtracting 42 from both sides. 138 minus 42 gives us 96. So we have 2G equals 96. And then we're going to divide by 2 to get G by itself. So 96 divided by 2 gives us 48. So your lowest grade was a 48. Answer the question with the correct units. That just means basically write it out. All right, 1C. In a given amount of time, Jamie drove twice as far as Rhonda. Altogether, they drove 90 miles. Find the number of miles driven by each. Okay, so we said Jamie drove twice as far as Rhonda. Okay, so twice as far as Rhonda. Altogether, so once you add them together, they drove 90 miles. Find the number of miles driven by each. Okay, so we know that Jamie drove twice as far as Rhonda, so we need to figure out how far Rhonda drove, and then we can say, okay, well, Jamie drove twice as far. So we're going to figure out how far Rhonda drove first, so we're going to use the variable R, and that's going to represent the number of miles that Rhonda drove. right, so now we can write and solve our equation. Okay, so we know, just out on the side, to figure out Jamie, it's going to be 2 times whatever Rhonda drove. So we can write that as J equals 2R. Right, and then we in general know that Jamie plus Rhonda equals 90. Okay, well, if we said that Jamie equals 2R over here, then that's what we're going to plug in. So 2R for Jamie plus R for Rhonda, and that equals 90. And now we can just combine our like terms and solve. So 2R plus R gives us 3R, and that equals 90. To get R by itself, we're going to divide by 3. So 90 divided by 3, R equals 30. Okay, but we're still not done because we still need to figure out what Jamie drove. So if we know that R equals 30, we know that we said Rhonda's was equal to 2 times R, then Jamie is equal to 2 times 30. So Jamie drove 60 miles. Answer the question with the correct units. Rhonda drove 30 miles. Jamie drove 60. Making sure you're writing miles on there. The units are really important, okay? So Rhonda drove 30 miles and Jamie drove 60 miles. All right, now we've got a couple of multi-step equations. All right, so let's start when we have a variable on both sides. So all that we have to do when we have a variable on both sides, notice we have an x on both, we have to combine those. We have to get those x's on the same side before we do anything else. So the best way is to get your lesser value on the other side. So here, if we added 3, it would be a little more confusing. You could do it either way. So we're going to just start by adding 2x to the left side. Okay, so then we have 5x plus 2 equals -8. And now we just have that one variable to work with and we can solve like normal. So we're going to start by subtracting 2 from both sides. -8 minus 2 is going to give us -10. We're going to divide by 5 to get x alone. -10 divided by 5, x equals -2. Right, then we've got 8x minus 7 equals 7x minus 2. Once again, a variable on both sides. So let's start by subtracting 7x from both sides to combine those like terms. So then we're left with x minus 7 equals -2. So since this x is already by itself, all we have to do is add 7. -2 plus 7. Okay, be careful with your signs here. X is going to equal 5. For C, we have -x minus 11 equals 2x plus 4. So let's get our x on the same side. We're going to subtract 2x from both sides. -x, we know that that's really -1x. So -1x minus 2x is going to give us -3x. Right, so the first thing we need to do is add that 11 on both sides. Oh, I just realized I wrote that one. Okay, so 4 plus 11 is going to give us 15. Okay, so to get our x by itself, we're going to divide by -3. And 15 divided by -3, x equals -5. All right, we have a couple of multi-step equations. So we're going to simplify each side by combining like terms. Okay, we need to do that first on each side. So x minus 1 plus 5x equals 23. Okay, so notice on the same side, we have x and we have 5x. So we can combine those. So we have 6x minus 1 equals 23. And now we're going to solve for x. We're going to add 1 to both sides. 6x equals 24. And then to get x alone, we divide by 6. So 24 divided by 6, x equals 4. All right, same thing for b. Negative 28 plus 15 minus 22x equals 31. So on the left side, we have like terms. Negative 28 plus 15. So we can combine that. Negative 28 plus 15 is going to give us negative 13. And we're solving for x, so the first thing we need to do, add 13 to both sides. So we have negative 22x equals 44. And then to get x alone, we can divide by negative 22. And we get x equals negative 2. 44 divided by negative 22 gives us negative 2. All right, we just have a few more problems to make it through. So 42x plus 18 minus 19x equals 28. All right, so we have 42x and negative 19x that are like terms. So 42x minus 19x gives us 23x. So we're going to start by subtracting that 18 from both sides. So we get 23x. Okay, then we can say negative 28 minus 18. Those are both negatives. So we're going to get negative 46. And now we can divide by 23. Once again, real quick, make sure you're using SADMEC. Okay, so negative 46 divided by 23, that's a negative divided by a positive, so x equals negative 2. Negative 49 plus 3x plus 2 equals 6x minus 13 minus 4x. So now we've got like terms on both sides. So on the left side, we have negative 49 and 2 that can be combined. And on our right side, we have 6x and 4x. So negative 49 plus 2 is going to give us negative 47. Then on the right side, 6x minus 4x is going to give us 2x. And now we can solve. So we still have a variable on both sides. We need to combine those first. So we're going to move 2x to the other side. Or it's positive here, so we're subtracting it to move it. So negative 47. 3x minus 2x leaves us with x. And then x is alone, so we just need to add that 47. So negative 13 plus positive 47 is going to give us positive 34. All right, we just have two more on the next page. Negative d plus 12 minus 3d equals 5d minus 6. All right, so we need to combine negative d and negative 3d. That'll give us negative 4d. We'll bring the right side down the way it is. And now we need to bring our variables together. So we have negative 4d and 5d. I'm going to subtract 5d from both sides. Okay, those are both negative. So we get negative 9d. Oh, negative 9d plus 12. Right, so we need to first subtract 12 from both sides. We get negative 9d equals negative 18. And to get d by itself, we're going to divide by negative 9. So negative 18 divided by negative 9, that's a negative divided by a negative. It's going to become a positive, and the answer is 2. All right, and then our last one, we have 3m plus 6 minus 2m equals negative 22. So we can combine 3m and negative 2m. That's just going to give us m. Okay, then we want to get m by itself, so we're going to subtract 6. So negative 22 minus 6 gives us negative 28. All right, guys, that is it for today's lesson. Go ahead and work on your practice, and if you have any questions, as always, reach out to your teacher. Have a good one.